Hello again, Psych 92. Well, it seems that we are finished with all the recordings of the chapters and that you should be taking your quiz this week. And so next week, in our last week of the regular semester, you will be taking the last exam, as well as waiting for your revision of your papers that you turned in. And I will try to get those back to you by Thursday or Friday of next week at the latest. I'm trying to record everything now that I can so that next week all I have left is to read your papers and get them back to you ASAP. The only things that we are missing are the little things for your papers. So let me go over this really quick and I will put them into a folder to give everything to you. There are 3 documents here. This one right now is the abstract and title page. I think I can zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to start by talking about that. The next one is creating graphs in Excel and how to do it. Again, I'm going to give you the numbers for yours, and you can just use that as the graph. The only thing that would be different is labeling the figures and figure captions and stuff like that. So after I go over how to create a graph in Excel, and I give you basically, next week I'll give you the numbers and all of that, then I will tell you how to put your tables, figures, and figure captions together. So as a reminder, your first submission, you can put this title page as part of it. It's not going to count for or against you in any points, but maybe just a way to just make sure you're on the right track, because I will give you feedback on it if you want, but it should be fairly simple. I've never used the APA style, truth be told, in Microsoft Word, but there is an APA style button, so I'm not sure if it does the page numbers for you or anything like that. But these 3 documents will be available to you as soon as this recording is over. And that means the only thing really for next week is giving you the actual data for your set for your paper. And I just want to go over the order for the final paper that everything is due. And I'll write that order again on this folder, this document, on the course page. So in order, for your first submission, of course, is just the introduction, the method section, and the references at the end. The final paper, and I will go over this again as many times as I need to, is in this order. Title page, which does not have a page number on it. The abstract, which starts as page 2. So even though the title page is page 1, it doesn't have the page number on it. I would imagine that this is already in the APA style button, but just in case, the way that I used to do it when I was writing my dissertation and all of that is that I would make my document with a blank first page and just kind of throw that page away that would say page 1, and I would make a separate title page and kind of put it on top. But since you guys are turning this in electronically, I don't know if that's the easiest way to do it or just to see and hope that it works in using the APA button. But the title page is going to be the first thing that you do. Then the abstract is on its own page on page 2. Your introduction, again, we do not use the word introduction. It's not like the method, results, or discussion section where you have the header. The introduction just starts the paper on the 3rd page and goes into it like any other. So the title page is technically page 1, but there's no page number on it. The abstract starts with page 2. The page numbers should be on the top right corner. And again, if you hit the APA button, that's probably how it defaults. Then the introduction, method, results, and discussion section are one long flowing section. So if your discussion section stops at the top of the page, right there on the next line should be method in the middle. Then then results, then discussion. So after the 4 main, right, so we have title page, then we have abstract, Then we have the 4 main sections of the paper in that order: introduction, method, results, discussion. Then right after the discussion section is your, on a separate page, is your references. Your reference section is its own page. You already had that in the beginning of your first submission. And after the references, at the end of everything, the very last page is going to be your figure 1, which is going to be your graph. I'm going to talk about how to graph today. So that is the exact order in which I expect for your final paper at the end of finals week. The title page, the abstract starting with page 2, the introduction starting with page 3, and in that order as one continuous unit: intro, method, results, discussion. On a separate page after the discussion is your references, and then the final page after the references is your figure. In this case, you should only need one figure, the one that we create together, or the one that's based on the numbers I'm going to give you next week. That and sort of like writing tips on what to do and what not to do is pretty much the only thing that you're going to need for next week besides taking the exam. And then once you get your feedback from me from the first submission, you can edit as you see fit and then write your second half. And you can start writing your second half before you edit the first half, obviously. So let's start the discussion here the way the research paper and title page should be presented. As you well know, or may well know, the APA style dictates that the paper should be double-spaced on a standard size paper, and the margins should be standard at 1 inch all around. That seems to be the default setting, as you see here on Microsoft Word, but again, there is an APA style button that you can use. Just make sure that it's still to my liking. The paper should be defaulted in Times New Roman font 12 point. Again, the original Microsoft Word did that. Now it's 11 point Calibri. I would imagine, though, that if you hit the APA button, that you're going to get it defaulted to Times New Roman, but check just to make sure. I would definitely do that. At the top of every page is a page header. We call this the running head. And the page numbers are on, it says the bottom right corner. I need to change that right now. And hopefully when I put this up, I'm going to give you the new version of it, which says the top right corner. So again, I'm going to just put this here for now, and then I will make sure that it's edited this way. And I'll even make it bold just to make sure. So now you guys see it is the top right corner, not the bottom. That was an older version. For the title page, it should contain the title of your paper. This is in the middle. So you're going to center the type, and you're going to put this in the middle of the paper. Investigating the relationship between cell phone use and driving. Brandon Mason. Again, you want to put your full name, and you want to put the college and not ELAC, East Los Angeles College. These are the 3 things that you want in the main part of the title page. In addition, the title page should be placed in the header on top of the page in all capital letters. Now, on all other pages besides the title page, the running head should be a shortened version of the title. So on the first page at the top, right, and I'm gonna change this anyway, but at the very top, you'd have a header up here, right? And the running head would say, it's not going to be on the title, but running head, and then colon, and then in all caps, you would say investigating, etc., etc. So you would have the actual words running head. And as you see, as I've written them, running head has a capital R, but is not nothing else is capitalized. The title, investigating the relationship between cell phone use and driving, the full title of your paper should be up here in the running head. Now, obviously, I just hit the enter button, and this is the same 18-point font size as the title. You would go up to right? Edit. Right now I can't do it from here, but you would go up to edit and you would go to headers and you would put that in the header. Only for the title page, which is why sometimes I say make it separate. Only for the title page do you put these words running head, and you have the full title that you use. Every other page after that, you wouldn't have the words running head, you wouldn't have the full title. So every other page, starting with the abstract, you would just see maybe something like this: cell phone use and driving. But it would be, again, over here in the header section. This is what's called the running head. You would only give the words running head on the title page. So hopefully that's understandable. If you're not sure how to do that, look it up online. So, oops. So let's go from there. And going back down. So at the very top, the words running head, colon, and in all capital letters, investigating the relationship between cell phone use and driving, all capital letters for the actual title. And in the middle of the page, it'll say investigating the relationship, Brandon Mason, East Los Angeles College. That's your title page. No page number, just the words running head, colon, and your whole title in caps. And those three things: the title again, your name, and East Los Angeles College. So in addition, the title page should be placed in the header in all capital letters, as I just said. On all other pages besides the title page, the running head is just going to be a shortened version in all capital letters. So in this case, we would just go for this last portion, and it would be in all caps, just saying cell phone use and driving from the abstract all the way to the end of the paper. Not the references, not for the reference page, and not obviously for the figure, but everything else. Another thing that I just wanted to point out about the figure is I know that in an actual printed out journal article, you see the graphs and all the tables and stuff in the results section. And when you turn in your manuscript, that is not how it is. When they edit the manuscript and put it into their magazine or their journal, that's when they put your graphs and stuff into the results section. But when you hand in a manuscript to the publisher, as the paper, the way that you're writing the paper is writing the manuscript, the figures and tables and all of that are going to be in the back behind the references. It is the publisher that puts them in. So don't make the mistake, because you will lose points for it. Don't make the mistake of putting the graph, your figure, in the results section. Do not do that, please. So again, in this case, your running head could be relationship between phones and driving, or simply just shortening it to cell phones and driving. You can have a full big title. You can have a small title to begin with and just keep it the same for the whole thing. It is a good idea, as I said, to make your title page as a separate document. That's usually if you're turning it in together. I don't know if the APA style will allow you to do that. Remember that this is based on you guys turning in a hard copy to me. So when it's time to turn in your hard copy, you attach the title page, your abstract starts on page 2, you throw away the blank page 1, and you're good to go. In this case, right, figure it out. I'm sure you guys can do it. That's the title page. On page 2 is the abstract. The abstract is essentially a summary of the entire paper in one paragraph. It is a beefier version of like what you did for the introduction section for the other things, for the other articles that you reviewed for your references. One sentence or so pertains to each section of the research paper. So in effect, a sentence or two on the background of the study, a sentence or two on the overall method of what was done, a sentence or two describing the results as simply as possible. Usually they provide p-values in the thing. Do you want to provide p-values? Since we're going to assume that everything's significant, you can just say, you know, we found main effects and an interaction, p-value, p is less than 0.05, if you want to put that in the abstract. And a sentence or two about the implications of the study. The abstract, again, is the second page of the paper after the title page. It should include your first running head and the title of abstract in the middle of the page. So top of the page, kind of like you did for method, like you'll do for results and discussion. But look at this right here, not in bold, not in italics or any type of formatting. So just write the word abstract, and it should say page 2 on the right side. On the left side above abstract, it should have the running head without the words running head, whatever the shortened title is. And under abstract, that's when you write. There's no indenting or anything like that. So the abstract should ideally be about 150 to 250 words max. So a bit beefier version of a paragraph. It will be double spaced like the others. I know that it doesn't look that way when it's printed out in a journal article, but it is for the manuscript. And it's a summary of the key points. No indentations are made for the abstract, so you write them as it's just flush to the left. So don't indent. The abstract should contain your research topic, research questions, and hypotheses. We predicted, or you can even say, because you're writing this by yourself, you can say I predicted. Make sure it's all in past tense. Participants, methods, results, and data analysis. So I used a two-way between subjects ANOVA, right? Like we did in that fill in the blanks. And then the conclusions. We found there was a significant main effect of, and remember, you guys changed your seed article to be your new one, so I can't give you a straight up answer on what your IVs will be, or based on your predictions, right? Your main effects. We found if we were to use the seed article, we had a main effect of, we would say main effect of cheating condition, which remember was opaque versus transparent. Main effect of priming condition, remember it was, the priming was the breaking the law in 5 of the 8 matches versus nothing to do with breaking rules, not law, but breaking rules. So we had rule breaking versus not rule breaking primes. And then interaction. So if we were to use the seed article IVs as they originally were, I would predict that there was that people would be more creative in the cheating condition, opaque versus transparent, that there would be more creativity in the primed condition with the rule breaking than the non-rule breaking or neutral, and that there would be an interaction. For you guys, one of those IVs is probably the same, and there may be a new one. So your labels are for you and your specific proposal. And then, of course, the conclusions. What does this have to do with the real world? What does it mean that you have better creativity? What would creativity do for you in the real world? Lots of things that are good for creativity. Inventing things, writing for scripts for TV and movies, blah, 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 blah. So that is the first document. Your title page and your abstract should be fairly easy to do. The only other things that you really need to do are write the results section, which you can use the fill in the blank template. Just make sure that you use the right numbers. I'm going to give you a printout, and I want to make sure that you're going to use the right numbers and your labels, right? We practice this a lot, so hopefully you got that. And then, of course, after the references, the last thing that you're going to put in there is your figure. So how do we create a graph in Excel? This is the latest version of Excel. And so this is the second document of the 3 that I'm presenting. Here we see that there are some pretty easy steps to follow on how to, and I'll make it a little bit bigger for you guys, how to create graphs in Excel. Now what I did was, because I have a Chromebook, so I don't actually have Excel on this laptop, but through 365, through the LACCD website, we can get onto Excel and create a new workbook and go into a new document, which is what I did. So I just created what you'll see in the document, level 1 IV1, level 2 IV1, which I kind of want to put it together like that, okay? And level 1 IV2, level 2 IV2. So let's go through the steps here and see if we can create a graph and figure out how to edit it. Because I will create a graph for you guys and I will show you the basics. I will give you maybe a table like this, or I will just tell you what's in each one, and you're going to have to figure out what's your IV1, what's your IV2. because that's how you're going to label it. So for here, we're doing a line graph. I think there was on here how to do a bar graph. We're not going to do a bar graph. We don't need to, so I can go over this if you want, but I just want you guys to realize that we are definitely using a line graph and not a bar graph, right? So let's go back through the steps. Number one, it says here in cells A2 and A3, insert the names of two levels of one independent variable. So on the blank worksheet here, in A2 and A3, I put level 1 IV1, level 2 IV1. If you wanted to give it an actual label, right, here, remember I used this hypothetical example of gender and type of clothing. So here I put male and female. So we have gender one level male and the other level female, and we have type of clothing. Up here is level 1 of IV2 and level 2 of IV2. So here we have light and dark clothing, which this box would give us males with light clothing, males with dark clothing, females with light clothing, females with dark clothing, or level 1 IV1, level 1 IV2, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just putting labels here where yours would be. So if your IV levels are, transparent and opaque, or opaque and transparent, and then the other one here is like primed and not primed, or however you did it, males and females. Maybe you switched it to gender. Those would be your levels here. So this would be opaque males, opaque females, transparent females, basically, right? Going back to the document. In cells B1 and C1, which I already did, that would be the second one. So here's B1, level 1 IV2. Here's C1, level 2 IV2. This gives us 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, or over here, 4 boxes for each of the 4 groups. What's next? In cells B2, B3, C2, and C3, insert the appropriate values. So if we're looking at this one here, here's level 1 IV1, level 2 IV1, level 1 IV2, level 2 IV2, and here are the 4 numbers. So just for now, these will not be the numbers that we use for the actual data set, but let's just plug them in as we see here. So we have 4, 4, 3, 5, right? So let's go to the here, and in fact, I'll just do it here because it's got labels on it, 4, 4, and then remember this was 3, 5, right? So now we have means. These would be the group means for each of these groups. So the number of people that helped males with light clothing was 4. The number that helped males with dark clothing was 4. The number that helped females with light clothing was 3. And the number that helped females with dark clothing was 5. This does not go with the hypothesis of the original one, but I'm just filling it in to give you actual variables so you see it. So we've done this. Now it says select all 9 cells, click on insert and go to line selection, and then click on the arrow and the first chart under 2D line. So really quickly, very easily, I just take my cursor and I highlight all 9. So you have the 2 labels here, the 2 labels here, the 4 cells, and then there's that one that just sort of puts it together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've highlighted it. Now we go to insert. So we are inserting. And in this case, we're inserting a line graph. So we click on it and we have 2D lines. So we just go to the very first one and we click it. And boom, here is our line. Here we have one line that goes up, one line that goes down. So just by looking at this now, you already know, oh my gosh, look at this. Here is it's an interaction. All right, we have our graph here. Very nice, very cool. We see it. Here is on the x-axis male and female, so you can see the 2 levels of IV1. And here are the lines, which are IV2. One of the first things I want to do, if I can click on it, and I can't, I don't think. So it's going to be a little bit different with mine, is that you're going to want to move, one of the things you're going to want to do is move the, and I'll show you when I figure it out, is move your key of light and dark. It's supposed to be in the area, in sort of the graph area. So we would move that up here. I can't click on it. Maybe it's the online version because of that. Yeah, so I'm going to open this up a little bit more, and so we can see it nice and big. What do we do next? So we've done this. clicked on the arrow line and select the first chart. Be careful to select an option that clearly differentiates between the two lines. So in this case, right now, what we see is that one line is red and one line is blue. We can't leave it this way. When you guys were going to do a presentation, I didn't care if the presentation was red and blue, but one of the other things that we talk about for APA style is that your graph has to be black and white or black and gray. So you can make one line darker than the other and one line lighter than the other, but they both have to be in shades of black or gray. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is make one line solid black and one line like dashed or dotted line. So how do we do stuff like that? Well, let's look here. So here again, be careful to select an option that clearly differentiates between the two lines. Level 1 could be marked by like diamonds and 2 marked by squares, because remember that your graph to print out for your report needs to be in black ink. So it has to be in shades of gray or black. So the next thing to do here at number 7 is in the chart tools selection, click on the design tab. So let's go up here, and then it says you can switch columns and rows, just to show you that it doesn't matter which one is on the x-axis and which one is the lines. It makes no difference. It depends on the way you want your IBs to appear in the figure. If one looks better to you, great. Otherwise, just go with whatever. So if we go back here, I know that I can do this. Here's chart tools. If I click on chart, now we have a whole bunch of different things to do. We have axes and grid lines, data table, legends, axis titles, chart title. So first thing we want to do is look at the grid lines. So normally what you can do is you can normally just click on the grid lines here and they'll all light up, and you could right click and hit delete. But very easy, just go to grid lines. And these are the horizontal grid lines, and you just go to none, no grid lines, and boom, they're gone. Because in APA style, we do not have grid lines. In the new version of Excel, for some reason, we don't have a y-axis line. I don't know why. If you go to axes, primary vertical axis, it's defaulted to none. So you want to show a default axis. And that didn't really actually work. So try it again, primary vertical axis. I don't know why it says do not display it. If I click it, yep, it's not working. So I'm not really worried about it if it's not going to work for you. What are some of the other things? So we got rid of that. What about the legend? Let's see if we can move it. Overlay legend. Where do we want it? I would like the legend right here at the right. So if I click on that, for some reason, again, it doesn't work. Primary horizontal axis, legend. Looking at the legend, right now it's on none. We don't want none. There it is. It's on the right now. So I don't know if there's any way to click on it. Normally, in the regular version, you could click on it and then kind of move it over. It won't let me do that now. Uh-oh, now it's gone. Legend, show legend at the right. That's what I want. I want it here. There we go. Let's see if I can do that by clicking again on the axis. Vertical axis, show the default axis, click. Nope, didn't work that time. So again, I'm not going to worry about it. What else do we want to do? We don't really have anything. Let's see if we can find switch columns and rows. I don't know if it's on here. It says tell me what you want to do. So chart tools, right here, ba-bam, switch columns and rows. If we click on that, weird. Maybe we have to do something else here, but normally you can just switch columns and rows, and it's not working in here. So I don't really know if I have to double click or why it's not necessarily working. But what it would do is it would switch male and female. Oh, there it is, male and female to light and dark. So now light and dark is on the bottom. Maybe it's on delay here. Light and dark is on the bottom, male and female is on the top. If you like this one better because it's a crossover interaction as opposed to a spreading interaction, cool, go for it. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to your thing. If you like a crossover interaction because you're like, this shows it better, then great. Male and female are here on the right. Light and darker are on the x-axis. If we go back, I don't know if we have to do it like this and we just wait for it to come back, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you that you could do it either way, and you can just go back and forth with it. There it is. Yep, it just takes a while to do. So I'm wondering if I did the axes now, vertical axis, show the default axis, and I just wait, it'll actually give me a line. Maybe it won't. Doesn't really matter. So what else would we want to do? So normally there's a layout, but this is all part of the same chart tools section now. So you would click on chart titles and then type in the appropriate information. So as you'll see in the tables and figures, you need to have your x-axis labeled, you need to have your y-axis labeled, and you need to have your a chart title. So here you can already see chart title. So you would want it centered overlay. What would we call this? We can call this helping behavior by gender and clothing. Maybe you want to call it something like that, and then boom, there it is. You can always change. Normally you can right click on it or whatever, change it if you think that this is not a big enough font and you want to make the title bigger, you can do that, but it should be over the chart. So we're good there. And maybe, of course, you want to you want to use all capitals. So behavior, gender, clothing would probably all be capitalized. So if I really wanted to, again, same thing, I could go to it and change it to be capitalized. What else? We need axis titles. So if we go back to this sheet, again, we're removing the grid lines. Chart title is here, no grid lines, and you want to make sure that the last thing really that you do is make sure you have axis titles. So looking here, we go to axis titles. Our horizontal one is our x-axis, so we want a title below the axis. And here, male and female, what is the name of this IV? We call it gender. So underneath, boom, and now you see gender right here underneath. So we have it labeled. Here's the x-axis. This is IV1 labeled. We already know that these are the levels of IV2, or vice versa. We also need a y-axis label, or you'll lose points. So everything has to be labeled. Axis title, the vertical axis is your y. Do we want a vertical title or a rotated title? You want to go rotated title. And what was our IV in this case was helping behavior. For your DV, most of you, if you left it the same, it would be the RAT score, right, on average. So you can just put RAT score or modified RAT score. And in fact, let's just keep it copacetic and give you a capital letter. And here's the RAT score. And you can see here it is rotated, looking vertical. Here's the RAT score. Really what this would be is helping behavior, right? Helping behavior by gender and clothing. But I'm just giving you an example of what it would look like. So your IVs are here, gender and clothing type. Your DV is the RAT score. That's the number you're getting. And here is your actual numbers. You don't need to explain this graph much because you're doing most of the explaining, right? Remember, when you're filling in the blanks in figure 1, you will see blah, blah, blah. There's an interaction in which blah, blah, blah. So again, if you wanted to change this and you're like, it's a spreading interaction. I like one that actually crosses over. Click it again and boom, there it is, right? So it doesn't matter which way you do it. See? And now it's responding a lot faster now. So this, basically what you'd want to do is you can go to File. I don't know if File works, but you would be able to either save as, print, right? One of the things that you would do basically in just regular Excel is just try and copy the entire thing. It's highlighted, so maybe I can copy. And then you would paste it into a Word document. And that's how this would work. Looking at the chart here, finally, because APA formatting wants the legend to be inside the axis area, click on the legend and either drag the text box to the right-hand side, or now you see in this, I already did that here. I just went to legend and I put it show legend at the right. because that's APA style, what it wants you to do. Once this is copied and pasted in Word, you're pretty much good to go. So basically, everybody's going to have the same numbers because I'm generating a fake data set for you for next week. The only thing that you're going to have to do is change your title, make sure the grid lines are gone, change your, and I'm just going to give these to you so you can make your own graph. Change your variable names or levels, and of course, label your axes, right? That's pretty much all you have to do for the graph itself. But there's one more thing. When we're looking at tables, figures, and figure captions, this is the last document I'm giving you on this. It's one page, so it should be pretty easy. For tables and figures, and remember, you don't need a table for anything. The only thing that we're doing and adding to the very end of this paper to make it complete is one figure, this one, based on the information I give you. The data for tables and figures, the data relevant to a study's most interesting or important hypotheses. Remember, the most important thing here is that that whether or not there's an interaction. That's the interesting thing. So the data relevant to the study's most interesting or important hypotheses are frequently summarized in a table or figure. Which you use is largely up to the author. But for this course, to make it easy on you, let's go with just figure 1. But what do each of these things bring to the table? Tables can give exact numerical values and are easier to prepare than figures, less expensive to print than figures a lot of times. Again, we're not worrying about printing. You guys are sending me this document and you're making it in Excel. Figures, however, as we talked about, are more visually interesting and can illustrate things like trends, functional relationships, and of course, most importantly, interactions, more clearly and dramatically than tables. For this idea, that's why we're using a figure. We will just call it figure 1. You can use both tables and figures in the same report to present different results. You cannot, however, present the same information in a table and a figure. It's redundant and it's not necessary. And you'll get comments back from peer reviewers saying, nope. So, couple things. On that last page that you would have just copied and pasted your graph, your figure, you need figure caption, and you need the figure title. So the figure caption serves as the figure's title, and it provides a brief verbal explanation of the information portrayed in the figure. It should be brief but complete enough that the reader does not need to refer to the text of the report in order to understand what data are being depicted in the figure. In general, this figure caption should identify all the relevant variables and specify their relationship to each other. For example, figure 1, and this is what's going to go below the graph. Below the graph, you see figure 1. Here, you may notice that this is in italics. You need to do it this way. This is APA style. Figure 1, period, italics. The rest of it is not in italics. This is just how you are looking at it. So this graph would represent what? What would this graph be? So it's not just the figure title, it is the caption. So what are we looking at in this graph? We're looking at the proportion of words that were correctly recognized as a function of the number of alternatives provided on both immediate and delayed retention tests. If we were to use the example I gave you on male, female, and dark and light clothing, you would say the total number of people that helped as a function of gender and type of clothing the person was wearing. That's what you would say. For the cheating one, if we were to use the seed article, we would say the total score the total amount of creativity as shown in the RAT test as a function of whether or not you cheated and whether or not you were primed, right? You're just explaining what the graph shows. In your results section, we know what the interaction means and all of these things. So if the meaning of measurement for the dependent variable is not obvious, you should provide an explanation. What is the RAT score? RAT is a matter of how creative the person was. If you need to elaborate a little bit, do it. If you think that it's fine the way it is, great. Any symbols also that are not explained in the legend should be explained in the figure's caption. All figure captions are typed on a single separate page. So if you had another figure, if you had a figure 2, you would not put it on the same page. Figure 2 or table 1 or whatever, each of the graphs or tables would be on their own separate page and have their own separate captions. So all figure captions used to be typed on a single separate page, now they are to be typed on the figure itself. Any additional information, see APA manual. The only other thing that's not really on here is that you need to label it figure 1. So if we go back to this graph itself, let's just say that this was the page. Right above it up here in Microsoft Word, you would write the word figure 1, period. And that would just be in regular type, 12-point Times New Roman font. Figure 1, period. Here's the graph. And then underneath the graph, right underneath it here, if this was the Word document, this is where the figure caption would go. So it would say figure 1, period, in italics, and then it would be your however you label this. Those are the things you need to get full points for this. So now we know the table, figure, and figure captions. We now know how to create graphs in Excel and how to manipulate the words, how to create labels for your axes, how to move, right? Let me move this back down. How to create a title, how to take out the grid lines, how to move the figure legend so that it's on the right-hand side and not underneath the graph line. And that's pretty much everything you'll need. Remember that the graph goes in the very back after the reference section. I can't say that enough. So hopefully you have everything you need from this outline. I will provide these 3 documents with this recording and put them up as soon as it's ready. Thank you guys for listening to this, and hopefully I've given you every little single detail that you need to make this part of the paper perfect. Talk to you soon.